Let's first discuss security architecture. A security architecture is a unified security design that addresses the necessities and potential risks involved in a certain scenario or environment. It also specifies when and where to apply security controls. It is a prescriptive document that uses a set of coherent models and principles to guide the implementation of the information security policy of an organization. In a security architecture, the design principles are reported clearly, and in-depth security control specifications are generally documented in independent documents. A security architecture has three key characteristics. First, it consists of a transparent and coherent overview of models, principles, starting points, and conditions that give a concrete interpretation of the information security policy, usually without speaking in terms of specific solutions. Second, it reduces a complex problem into models, principles, and subproblems to be understood. Third, the models and principles show where you take which type of measures, when the principles are applicable, and how they connect with other principles. One of the most widely used security architectures is the Sherwood Applied Business Security Architecture model for enterprise security architecture. It is developed to provide an end-to-end framework for determining, designing, and deploying security. As shown in the figure on the slide, the model consists of 5 hierarchical layers, with the 6th layer planning the other 5. The first layer is contextual security architecture. It describes the key business issues, starting with the assets, the motivation for providing security, the business processes, the organization, geographic dispersion, and key time-related considerations in these processes. The security characteristics of each of the business drivers are considered at the conceptual security architecture. By associating a set of these attributes with each business driver, an organization can define a security architecture in a way that provides full traceability back to business needs. A third layer is logical security architecture. It provides the design layer view, focusing on the delivery of service and information to meet security concept. The fourth layer, physical security architecture, deals with the delivery of tangible items to support the logical services. The fifth layer is component security architecture. This layer defines the hardware and tools, delivers the physical design, and provides a mapping to conform to standards. A sixth layer, security service management architecture, addresses issues related to how the organization manages the architecture. The most powerful tools in the architecture are attributes and attribute profiling. Attributes provide a conceptualized and normalized way of describing a business driver. In other words, a security-focused version of a business requirement. Attributes are used to tag aspects of the architecture design to allow two-way traceability up and down the layers. They provide transparent traceability to the stakeholders and help an organization to understand the controls that support the various business requirements. An important guide to the use of model is the security architecture matrix that is shown in the figure on the slide. Each row corresponds to one of the 6-layer architecture. The six columns define the key questions that need to be addressed at each level: what, why, how, who, where, and when. If an organization addresses the issues raised by each and every one of these cells, then it has covered the entire range of questions to be answered, and the organization can have a high-level confidence that the security architecture is complete. So the process of developing enterprise security architecture is a process of populating all 36 of these cells. The matrix also provides two-way traceability, completeness, and justification. Completeness is about whether every business requirement has been met, whereas justification is about whether every component of this architecture is needed. Next, let's introduce malware protection activities. The National Institute of Standards and Technology special publication defines malware as a program that is covertly inserted into another program with the intent to destroy data, run destructive and intrusive programs, or otherwise compromise the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of the victim's data, application, or operating systems. Malware can pose a threat to the application programs, utility programs, and kernel-level programs. It is often used on compromised or malicious websites or servers, or specially crafted spam emails or other messages, which aim to trick users into revealing sensitive and personal information. This list on the slide provides the various types of malware. Malware spreads through a variety of attack surfaces, such as email attachments, web pages, and cloud services. It is designed to avoid attack or disable defenses. In addition, it is constantly evolving to stay ahead of existing defenses. Therefore, given the complexity of the challenge, it is important for organizations to automate anti-malware actions as much as possible. The Center for Internet Security addresses typical elements for effective malware protection. The figure here on this slide shows the relationship among these entities. Effective malware protection must be deployed at multiple potential points of attack. Enterprise endpoint security suites should provide administrative features to verify that all defenses are active on every managed system. In addition, there should be systems in place to collect ongoing incident results with appropriate analysis and automated correction actions. For effective malware protection, IT management can take a number of practical steps to provide the best possible protection at any given time. The list here on this slide shows the several steps that the IT management can take. Malware protection software refers to the automated tools used to mitigate threats from a broad range of ever-evolving malware. Numerous malware protection software packages are available for enterprise use, and most of them have similar capabilities. The National Institute of Standards and Technology Special Publication lists the several desired capabilities that malware protection software should have. A malware protection software is desired to provide a scanning function for critical host components such as startup files and boot records. Also, a malware protection software should be able to watch real-time activities on hosts and check for suspicious activities, such as scanning all email attachments for known malware as emails are sent and received. In addition, it is desired to have functions that allow to configure anti-malware software to perform real-time scans of each file as it is downloaded, opened, or executed. This function is known as on-access scanning. Another desired capability is monitoring the behavior of common applications such as email clients, web browsers, and instant messaging softwares. Furthermore, anti-malware software on hosts should be able to scan all hard drives regularly to identify any file system infections as well as removable media inserted into the host. Users should be able to launch a scan manually as needed, which is known as on-demand scanning. It is also desired to have a function for identifying common types of malware as well as attacker tools. Finally, a malware protection software should be able to disinfect files, which refers to removing malware from within the files. It is also able to quarantine files, which means that files containing malware are stored in isolation for future disinfection and examination. In general, disinfecting a file is preferable to quarantining a file because the malware is removed and the original file is restored. However, many infected files cannot be disinfected. Accordingly, an anti-malware software is required to be configured to first make an attempt for disinfecting the files, then either quarantine or delete the files that cannot be disinfected. Malware protection software does not provide the same level of protection against previously unknown viruses and malware. It is therefore suggested for organizations to place other measures, including application sandboxing, intrusion detection softwares, and awareness training that provides guidance to users on malware incident prevention. Other measures include firewalls that by default deny unexpected behavior patterns, application whitelisting to prevent intrusion of unknown software, and virtualization and container techniques that segregate applications and operating systems from each other. With any form of software that is installed on enterprise systems, it is important for an organization to have specific management policies for the lifecycle of the software. Especially management policies should dedicate the following measures listed here on this slide for managing malware protection software. According to SGP, identity and access management typically consists of several discrete activities that follow the stage of a user's lifecycle within an organization. These activities fall into two categories: provisioning process and user access process. Provisioning process provides users with the accounts and access rights that they require to access systems and applications. User access process manages the actions performed each time a user attempts to access a new system, such as authentication and sign-on. An architecture for identity and access management is a high-level model that describes the main elements and interrelationships of the identity and access management system. The figure here on the slide shows a typical architecture for an identity and access management system. The architecture includes 5 main elements. The first element is Identity Management Service. It defines an identity for each user and associates attributes with that identity. It also enforces a means by which the user verifies identity. The central concept of an identity management system is the use of a single sign-on, which enables a user to access all network resources after a single authentication. Identity management enables creation, deletion, and modification of users' profile, and also enables the change of users' role or association with a function, a business unit, or an organization. The second element is directory, which provides a central identity repository and reconciliation of identity details between application-specific directories. It stores items for each user, such as user credentials, roles and groups, user preferences, and access control policy. The third element is access management system that implements user authentication. Portal is the fourth element. It provides a personalized interface for all user interaction with system resources. And the last element is provisioning services that cover centralized user administration capabilities. Provisioning services automate the task of changing users' rights and privileges across multiple enterprise applications. They also enable fast creation of new employee accounts and augment existing security practices by allowing administrators to quickly cut off terminated accounts. The concept of federated identity management refers to the agreements, standards, and technologies that enable the portability of identities, identity attributes, and entitlements across multiple enterprises and numerous applications, and supporting many thousands or even millions of users. When multiple organizations implement interoperable federated identity schemes, users of one organization use single sign-on to access services across the federation via trusted relationships associated with that identity. Using single sign-on, for example, an employee may log on to his or her corporate network to be authenticated to perform authorized functions. After that, this person can access authorized services on the network and then access the healthcare benefits from an outside healthcare provider without having to re-authenticate. Beyond single sign-on, federated identity management provides other capabilities. One is standardized means of representing attributes. Digital identities increasingly incorporate attributes other than simply an identifier, such as passwords or biometric information. Examples of attributes include account numbers, organizational roles, physical locations, and file ownership. Federated identity management allows users to have multiple identities, each with its own access permissions. Another key function of federated identity management is identity mapping. Different security domains may represent identities and attributes differently. Further, the amount of information associated with an individual in one domain may be more than is necessary for another domain. The federated identity management protocols map identities and attributes of a user in one domain to the requirements of another domain. The following figure on this slide shows the entities and the data flows in a generic federated identity management architecture. First, an end-user browser and other application engages in an authentication dialog with an identity provider in the same domain. The end user provides attribute values associated with his or her identity through the dialog and protocol exchanges provided by the identity provider. Identity management enables the user to provide this information once so that it is maintained in a single place and released to data consumers in accordance with authorization and privacy policies. Some attributes associated with an identity, such as allowable roles, may be provided by an administrator in the same domain. Service providers are entities that obtain and employ data which are maintained and provided by identity providers, often to support authorization decisions and to collect audit information. A service provider in the remote domain that the user wishes to access obtains identity information, authentication information, and associated attributes from the identity provider in the same source domain. The service provider opens a session with the remote user and enforces access control restrictions based on the user's identity and attributes. The goal of federated identity management is to share digital identities, so a user is authenticated once and then can access applications and resources across multiple domains, such as autonomous internal business units, external business partners, and other third-party applications or services. The cooperating organizations form a federation based on the agreed standards and mutual levels of trust to securely share digital identities. Therefore, federated identity management reduces the number of authentications needed by the user. For avoiding common security mistakes with identity and access management, Andy Zendal provides a following list for the best practices for identity and access management. Next, we'll introduce intrusion detection. Intrusion refers to the violations of security policy, usually characterized as attempts to affect the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of computer or network. These violations come from attackers who are accessing systems from the internet. The violations also come from authorized users of the system who are attempting to overstep their legitimate authorization levels or using their legitimate access to system to conduct unauthorized activities. Intrusion detection is the process of collecting information about events occurring in the computer system or network and analyzing them for signs of intrusions. Intrusion detection system IDS refers to the hardware or software products that gather and analyze information from various areas within the computer or network. The purpose of the IDS is to find attempts made to the system to provide real-time or near real-time warnings of attempts to access system resources in an unauthorized manner. Host-based IDS monitors the characteristics of a single host and the events occurring within the host for suspicious activity. This vantage point allows host-based IDS to determine exactly which processes or user accounts are involved in the particular attack on the operating system. The network-based IDS, on the other hand, monitors the network traffic for particular network segments or devices and analyzes the network transport and application protocols to identify suspicious activity. In general, an IDS comprises three logical components: sensors, analyzers, and user interface. Sensors are responsible for collecting data. The input for a sensor is any part of a system that contains evidence for intrusion. Sensors collect and forward this information to an analyzer. Analyzers receive inputs from one or more sensors or from other analyzers and are responsible for determining if the intrusion has occurred. The analyzer provides guidance about what actions to take and as a result of the intrusion. Finally, the user interface of an IDS enables the user to view outputs from the system or control the behavior of the system. There are two general approaches to intrusion detection. The first one is misuse detection, which is based on rules that specify system events sequences of events, or observable properties of a system that are believed to be symptomatic of security incidents. The misuse detectors use various pattern matching algorithms operating on large databases of attack patterns or signatures. It is accurate and generates few false alarms, but it cannot detect novel or unknown attacks. The second approach is anomaly detection, which involves searching for activities that are different from the normal behavior of a system entity or system resources. It is able to detect previously unknown attacks based on an audit of activity. However, there is significant trade-off between false positives and false negatives. A false positive occurs when IDS reports an intrusion event that is in fact legitimate network activity, whereas false negative occurs when the IDS fails to detect malicious network activity. In general, intrusion detection systems are classified in two categories, including host-based IDS and network-based IDS. A host-based IDS adds a specialized layer of security software to vulnerable or sensitive systems, such as a database server and administrative systems. It monitors activities on the systems in a variety of ways to detect suspicious behavior. In some cases, an IDS can prevent an attack before any damage is done, but its primary purpose is to detect intrusion, log suspicious events, and send alerts. The other category is network-based IDS, which monitors the traffic on the network segment. It involves looking at packets on a network as they pass through some sensor. This is generally accomplished by placing the network interface card in promiscuous mode to capture all network traffic that across the network segment. The following list on this slide shows the best practices for intrusion detection systems.